Good evening, everyone. I'm Greg Gaylor, Executive Director of the Boston Preservation Alliance. It's great to see many familiar faces and some new faces as well. Welcome to the 26th Annual Boston Preservation Alliance Preservation Achievement Awards. Each year, this event grows in size and prominence. And given the tremendous outpouring of support and engagement we've achieved, it's clear we've successfully transformed these awards into our marquee event of the year. We have a full program tonight, but I do need to recognize some key people who have made tonight a success. First, a sincere thanks to each and every one of you for joining me to celebrate the many remarkable and diverse achievements in preserving and enhancing the treasures we find throughout Boston's neighborhoods. I thank you for your work alongside the Alliance to support the preservation and new construction, which fuels the vitality of the city and complements its unique character. Thank you to the many public officials and staff with us this evening, and for your cooperation and support throughout the year. The consistent support of the Alliance each of you provide, not only financial support, but tweets and your likes and your forwards. This support is a huge boost to the advancement of our mission. It's hard to believe, but we have 88 sponsors this year, demonstrating that our message is truly resonating throughout the city. Now, 88's too many to read, but I really do need to individually thank our 7 Alliance leaders: New England Development, John Moriarty and Associates, Related Beal, Elkus Manfredi Architects, Suffolk Construction, the Davis Companies, and Samuels and Associates. I also need to recognize the hard-working and generosity of our entire honorary committee, who have been remarkable in building support for the Alliance's work. They helped us round up this remarkably full list of generous sponsors. Thank you all. Let's give them a round of applause. And please join me as you see these people and their names on their name tag as sponsors. Thank them and recognize them for their support. Our organizational members are also well represented tonight. And of course, I need to thank our many, many individual members who support our work. Some specific individuals and companies have made tonight's event a true success. A huge special thanks to the city for the use of this remarkably historic hall, and for Ashkenazi Acquisitions Corporation and Faneuil Hall Marketplace for their incredible generosity working with us on the reception, which we'll get to see later this evening at the adjacent greenhouse. Finally, a few quick thank yous, in-house thank yous to the Alliance Board, represented well here tonight, our award selection and events committees, and our young advisors, many of whom you'll see helping out during the evening. Please join me in a round of applause to thank all these many people. Now, I'd like to introduce Susan Park, founder, president, and indomitable force of the Boston preservation scene. Susan will present one of tonight's particularly special recognitions, the Codman Award for Lifetime Achievement and Preservation. Susan?
Good evening, everybody. It's lovely to see all of those of you I know again, and welcome to Faneuil Hall. It always does give you a stir to be in this wonderful building, I think. You can't even feel you feel the history that's here, and it just is overwhelming. The Alliance reserves our Codman Award for exceptional individuals who have made extraordinary accomplishments in preservation. For those of you who knew John Codman, he was a visionary realtor who saw value in the historic character of Beacon Hill and sought its protection as Boston's first historic district. Past recipients of this award include a diverse group of architects, public servants, conservators, including Bob Neely, Tom Menino, Paul McGinley, Joe Moakley, John Burchell, and our very own Judy Selwyn, who's in the middle back there somewhere. Judy, would you raise your hand? Judy, where are you? I know you're there.
She's just trying to embarrass you, Judy.
No, I'm not. Is Paul McGinley there somewhere? Tonight we recognize another exceptional advocate for Boston's heritage, who was behind an amazing array of preservation successes. Toni Pollock is one of Boston's own. Her influence on preservation in Boston goes beyond the many projects she was responsible for. It was fundamental. She helped shape the underlying culture of preservation today, a culture of respectful engagement and one where city government invests in its historic resources. Imagine that. Most recently, our longest-serving Boston Parks Commissioner, Antonia, was steward-in-chief over 286 parks and historic landscapes. She is a dirt gardener. That is a compliment. Those of you who garden knowing that a dirt gardener is a real gardener, not just one who talks about it. Just a few examples of her work include daylighting of the Muddy River, transforming Spectacle Island, and several other projects in Boston, to say the least. One of my many favorites being the Frog Pond, where the creative introduction of the winter ice skating has revitalized the area of the Common as a historic place to be enjoyed all year round. And people come from as far away as Attleboro to skate and the Frog Pond. Didn't you know Attleboro was part of Boston? I met somebody in San Antonio, Texas once, and I asked them where they were from, and they said they were from Boston. I said, oh, where? They said, North Attleboro. I said, oh, yes, right. Before that, Toni was director of the Environment Department, where her care and protection of historic resources encompassed a broad spectrum of archaeology, preservation, and air quality conservation and environmental compliance. We're not talking about roosters in Franklin Park. Roosters have a way of getting into the environment. Toni will be quick to say she wasn't alone in all of this, but she was central to the Menino administration's appreciation for and investment of our city's historic places. One might say she kept people honest. We wouldn't say that very loud, would we? No. Before Toni's service in city government, we had her here at the Alliance. I found Toni. I don't remember how. How did I find you?
Stumbled on me. I don't know.
Found her. I found her. She's all mine. And the Alliance was in need of a new executive director, and Toni had just left the aquarium and had been saving penguins. She was ready for her next challenge after taking a group of penguins to Chicago and coming back with the same number she left with. The Alliance was at the right place at the right time for Toni and us. In the 13 years she was with us, Toni was instrumental to our evolution, Greg. She wanted us to be a positive influence on proposed projects through early discussions with developers. Remember, these were the days of standing in front of bulldozers, chained to fences. Throughout her career, Toni has raised the bar and the expectation for all who follow her. I imagine it's far from over. The question is, who will get her next? Perhaps she'll be our czar of rising tides. Toni is not just a respected colleague, but she is my dear and treasured friend. Tonight, I am honored to be the one to present her with the Boston Preservation Alliance Codman Award.
Toni, please come up and join us.
I just quickly want to thank the Boston Preservation Alliance first for hiring me all those many moons ago, but also for the incredible work that you all do and being the advocates for historic preservation in our city. I particularly want to thank my colleague, my friend, and my mentor. Susan's the one that told me that taking action is really important when you have strong beliefs. And there are a lot of ways to do that, cajoling, threatening, whatever it takes. And we did it all. But I do want to say that usually when you get a Lifetime Achievement Award, it means that you're going into hibernation. And for all of you property owners out there, I'm not done yet. So thank you. It's very sweet of the Alliance to do this. It's very meaningful for me personally. And keep up the great work, everybody in the room.
She's a star and a friend.
Thank you, Tony. Congratulations. You leave big footsteps, big shoes to fill, I guess is the expression. I'm now pleased to turn the mic over to Alliance Vice Chair and Awards Selection Committee Chair Roger Takiff for presentation of tonight's project awards.
Thank you, Greg. It's never good to follow Tony, but it's less good to follow Susan Park. Good evening, everyone. I would like to express my warmest appreciation to all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for this evening's program. As well-informed and committed citizens, I am certain that sometimes we all share the feeling that our world is a very complicated place. Perhaps it has always been complicated. Certainly, each generation has its challenges. But for those of us who watch and read too much news, the world seems to be getting smaller and smaller, and every day seems to reveal yet another sobering event or crisis. It is perhaps most especially within the context of our complicated world that I feel so honored to be here with all of you at Faneuil Hall tonight. For as we all know, perhaps from our first experience as young schoolchildren, that it is within this very room and from this very stage, as evidenced by the rather imposing portraits of our founding fathers and all of those other patriots of liberty looming over my shoulders, that the very concepts of freedom, liberty, and independence, as we celebrate them today, were first publicly debated. Few other locations in our city and even in our country are more important to our nation's birth and to our gift to free-thinking peoples everywhere. In 1742, when Peter Faneuil first donated this great hall to his city, this meeting hall has been thought of as the cradle of liberty. This impressive room, so beautifully preserved and restored, has heard the great oratory of Sam Adams and Oliver Wendell Holmes and Susan B. Anthony, and Presidents George Washington, John Adams, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Bill Clinton, and most recently, Barack Obama. Therefore, you can imagine how honored and, quite frankly, how intimidated I feel to speak, even cautiously and respectfully, from the same podium, albeit in the worthy cause of helping preserve our city's heritage. As I have shared with my sons David and Michael, perhaps more often than they might have wanted to hear, we stand on the shoulders of those who have come before us. In fact, their great-grandfather Michael Takiff began his work here as a butcher in a stall in this very marketplace more than a century ago. The past matters greatly. When I look around our great city, and I do my best to try and absorb all that is taking place, I feel confident that even our most forward-thinking leaders would never have imagined how today's Boston, our city, would have changed, grown, and evolved. Such achievements remind us of the eloquent words first spoken by Governor Winthrop and then later by President Kennedy, that we shall be as a city upon a hill. For all of you 20 and 30-somethings in the audience, what an incredible time to live and work in Boston. From the thriving biotech and high-tech to startups to expanding and thriving world-class medical and educational institutions, Boston is, please forgive me, wicked awesome. Quite literally, more development is underway in our city today than at any time in its history. Billions of dollars of new developments and sensitive historic restorations are happening downtown, and equally as importantly, in our neighborhoods as well. Scores of residential and commercial developments are redefining the future of Boston. From the length of Washington Street to North Station, to the Back Bay's proposed new towers, to the monumental redevelopment of Government Center, to the continued redefinition of our Seaport District, to South Boston and Fort Point Channel, to the South End and East Boston, and most especially to Dudley Station. The promises of the new Boston are truly unfolding before us, and they are breathtaking. What's even more important is that with all of this promise of an even more vibrant future, our civic and elected leadership should not lose sight of the integrity and idealism that so define Boston's aspirations. We look forward with great enthusiasm towards the future, with an uncompromising commitment to preserving the legacy of what has been given to us. Side by side, the preservation of Boston's built environment and its historic architecture are being woven together with the fabric of exciting, world-class new architecture. Today, with this melding of our heritage and our aspirations, is our strong new commitment to environmentally sensitive green architecture, with building after building taking on the challenge of silver, gold, and even platinum LEED certification. We will be held accountable for the legacy that we leave to our children and our children's children. So therefore, let us do our best for our city and its future. Boston is a great place to live. And now, without further delay, let's begin our award presentations for the best in 2014. Our first winner is the First Parish Church of Dorchester. With a grateful nod of appreciation to the church's incredible website, in 1630, the Reverend John White and a group of 140 hardy souls formed a church in England calling themselves Puritans. Although they originally established themselves as reformers rather than separatists, increasingly intolerable conditions in England caused them to emigrate from their town of Dorchester in the county of Dorset in the southwest of England. They set sail in the 400-ton ship Mary and John and landed first at Hull and later at a place called Mattapan by the Indians. They found the town of Dorchester on March 30th, 1630, and established the First Parish Church in 1631. The Puritans named their new home Dorchester Plantation. Their first church was a simple log cabin with a roof of thatched grass. In addition to serving as a meeting house, this church also served as a fort, a storehouse, a schoolhouse, and the town hall. The original Puritan congregation is still remembered today for establishing our country's first free public school in 1636. The second church, originally built on the same site, was moved to its permanent location on Meeting House Hill in 1670. 4 successive churches were constructed on the Meeting House Hill site, all of which served as Dorchester's town hall as well. The 5th church hosted such distinguished leaders as William Lloyd Garrison and Theodore Parker. Their current church was constructed in 1896 after a fire had destroyed the 1860 parish house. This magnificent landmark church is Boston's only example of colonial revival ecclesiastical architecture, borrowing from the traditional New England meeting house style. Today's parish is an incredibly important resource for Dorchester's Vietnamese, Afro-American, Caribbean, Irish, Latino, Haitian, and Cape Verdean residents. The parish's restoration of this important Boston landmark is nothing short of breathtaking. Most exemplary of their uncompromising attention to detail is their collaboration with the skilled craftsmen and women, including apprentices from the North Bennett Street School, in the faithful restoration of the iconic steeple. In the spring of 2014, the First Parish Church completed the 3rd phase of their $5 million restoration project, which began in 2006. Phase 3 included accessibility, exterior repairs, painting, and most especially, the breathtaking steeple restoration. Congratulations to the congregation of the First Parish Church of Dorchester. Will Arthur LaValle and Mary Fernandez Borains, I hope I got that right, please join us from the First Parish Church. Takes us a little while to get going. Thank you very much. Our second award winner is the Clapp Family Barn. At 195 Boston Road in Dorchester stands the Dorchester Historical Society and the adjacent Clapp Family Barn. In 1630, the Clapp family also arrived in the New World upon the very same ship with their fellow First Parish Church congregants. Together, they had all emigrated from England and helped to settle Dorchester, one of the earliest settlements of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The Clapp family's prominent homestead today consists of 4 buildings, which were added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1974. The William Clapp House, the Lemuel Clapp Housel, it's a new word for me, the Carriage House, and the barn. And since 1946, they have been owned by the Dorchester Historical Society. The Clapp family has been a part of Dorchester's rich history for nearly 400 years, from its earliest beginnings as a rural outpost. In the 17th century, the family owned and operated a grist mill on the edge of the South Bay, powered by water captured from the rise and fall of the tides. Sounds like early green industrial empowerment to me. Additionally, the family participated in Dorchester's long agricultural roots and eventually took part in Boston's pre-industrial economy, including milling, tanning, and the hybridization of a variety of agricultural products, including, most especially, a dozen varieties of pear trees. Roger Clapp was the captain of the castle, Massachusetts Bay Colony's Fort William, during the Revolutionary War. Lemuel Clapp was a captain of the Patriot Troop, and his house actually served as the barracks for the Patriots during the fortifications of Dorchester Heights. Remarkably, when our motley entourage, Ward's entourage, unsuspectingly arrived at the Clapp family barn, we simply couldn't believe what we were seeing. This significant corner assemblage of buildings with its fine federal house might have been expected. However, to be introduced to one of the very few, if not the only, remaining barn in the city of Boston was certainly unexpected. The barn, in use from the mid-19th century through the 1930s, is a 3-bay-long, detached, side-gabled English barn. Its major timbers are hand-hewn, and its interior has a carpenter's shop, wagon aisle, and a tack room, with the animals having occupied the 3 bays. The barn is still filled from the floorboards to the hayloft with intact artifacts from the Clapp family's history. From hand tools, rakes, and butter churns to a period sign, fruit ladders, and a sleigh, it almost looked as if someone had just closed up the barn door and left after a long day's work. This farm and the barn have been a part of Dorchester's long agricultural heritage, perhaps most notably supplying goods and produce during the occupation of the city by the British troops at the start of the Revolutionary War, and even furnishing much of the plantings for the Boston Public Garden. We would especially like to express our appreciation to Paul, the gentleman who took us around, who was not only our tour guide, but one of the craftspeople who personally led the efforts to save and restore this historic barn, from rebuilding the foundations to repairing carrying beams and siding, and even to restoring the period barn doors and hand-forged strap hinges. The years of work were truly a labor of love. I'd like to congratulate the Clapp family barn. Would Earl Taylor and Jeff Gagnon from the Dorchester Historical Society please join us? Earl and Jeff. Where are they? These guys are both passionate preservationists. want him at my funeral. That's great music. Wonderful job. I feel like, let's hope I do a good job tonight. Next one, number 3, Fort Hill Water Tower. I think most of us have probably seen it and not known what it was. Situated high atop Fort Hill in the Roxbury section of Boston is the Cottituate Standpipe, also known as the Fort Hill Water Tower. This imposing Gothic revival Victorian-era tower opened in 1869 and was built on the area's highest point to give gravitational pressure to the municipal water supply. Most towns have water towers, and they look like water towers, but in the ornate fashion of the Victorian era, with their great pride in civic architecture, this tower was disguised as a medieval tower or a minaret. The Fort Hill Water Tower was designed by Nathaniel Bradley, one of Boston's prolific mid-century 19th century architects. This 145-year-old tower is 133 feet tall and 16 feet in diameter. The tower was built on land which was previously the site of Roxbury's High Fort. The High Fort, which was an earthworks fortification, was built in 1775 and played an important role in ending the siege of Boston under the leadership of General George Washington and Major General Henry Knox. General Knox, as we all remember, had captured Fort Ticonderoga in 1775 and dragged its massive cannons all the way to Boston through blinding snowstorms, across frozen lakes, and through the rural backwoods to this strategic fortress and to Dorchester Heights. These legendary cannons were used to drive the British out of Boston Harbor. In the late 1890s, the firm of Olmsted and Elliott was retained to provide new designs to the property. These improvements were completed between 1895 and 1916, including the addition of an exterior viewing balcony and the reconstruction of the quadrangle shape of the original fort. Boston's legendary mayor, John Honey Fitzgerald, reopened the structure as an observatory for the general public in 1917. It's the birth year of his grandson. Unfortunately, by the 1960s, the tower had fallen into such disrepair that its rusty door had to be padlocked. And by the 1970s, even the viewing balcony had collapsed. In 2013, the iconic tower and surrounding property were completely renovated by our city's Parks Department. The interior was completely restored, including its trusses. The exterior restoration necessitated the removal of generations of paint in order to make the necessary repairs to the 133-foot masonry exterior. The tower was then recoated with a historically appropriate and long-lasting mineral coating. Additionally, arched wood windows were repaired, as was the cast-iron spiral staircase, which spirals around the tank and once again is accessible to the public today. Congratulations to the Park Department of the City of Boston for a job well done, and will Leo Murphy and Joe Mulligan from the city please join us? Excuse me. Our fourth award is to Walgreens. Okay, get it over with. I did the same thing until you find out. At one of Boston's most prominent historic locations, nestled between Boston's Old City Hall, the Freedom Trail, the Old Corner Bookstore, and the Old South Church, is situated a dramatic memorial recalling the Irish famine. We are, of course, at the corner of School and Washington Streets at Downtown Crossing. On School Street, adjacent to the site, stands the venerable old Boston 5-cent Savings Bank building, with its bronze doors, stone and cast iron facade, and imposing multi-storied columned retail front. Excuse me. In the mid-1960s, when Boston was a very different city, of arguably diminishing prospects, Boston engaged the services of the architectural firm of Coleman, McKinnell, and Wood to build Boston's new City Hall, which opened in 1968. While the architectural debate as to whether Boston's new City Hall is to be revered or reviled, continues almost half a century later. Its architecture has been recognized as one of the most important mid-century modern buildings in America. In 1972, the Boston 5-cent Savings Bank building also engaged Coleman and McKinnell to redevelop and redefine their bank building in downtown Crossing. The firm dramatically shifted the building's entrance from the School Street traditional bank facade towards a new orientation. Their new entrance would look out from a gently curving facade towards the apex of Washington and School Streets, over the public plaza before it. Its stainless steel and glass curtain wall was set back from a concrete colonnade, creating a transparency that welcomed visitors and drew them inside. As the fortunes of the Boston Five diminished, this highly desirable retail location became one of the flagship stores for Borders booksellers, which most of us knew it as. The prominent space served Borders well with its dramatic, sunlit glass facade. As downtown Crossing's fortunes declined and bookstores seemed to be thought of increasingly as a vanishing relic, this important space went dark. Everyone involved in the revitalization of downtown Crossing knew that this important retail space needed an important new tenant. This very urban location not only epitomizes the hustle and bustle of Boston's commercial district, but must now respond to an emerging 24-hour-a-day residential community up and down Washington Street. Our award this evening is given to Walgreens, a seemingly atypical but well-deserving recipient of a preservation award. Walgreens made a commitment to think way outside the proverbial box of traditional retailing and reimagined a retail emporium focused around their traditional pharmacy business, but with a greatly expanded repertoire. This new Walgreens is anything but typical. In addition to its pharmacy, it features a frozen yogurt and smoothie bar, a cafe, a sushi station complete with a sushi chef, easy to say, and you can now even buy a bottle of wine along with a good book. Along with the dramatic and creative repurposing of this space, Walgreens retained the original bank vault, complete with rebuilt custom millwork and cabinetry used to display local and historic artifacts. It really is worth seeing. The team also restored all of the existing marble, stone, and bronze elements of the original structure, including the grand entry revolving doors. Finally, new interior finishes, complementing both the traditional and the mid-century modern architecture, including custom cabinetry, stone and ceramic flooring, bronze light fixtures, and a new bronze and glass railing were installed. Walgreens' award-winning restoration of this flagship location along the Freedom Trail will certainly serve as a catalyst for the continued revitalization of downtown Crossing's retail district, while respecting 2 generations of important civic architecture. To Walgreens, congratulations, and will Tyler Huff and Steve Pashko please join us? The next building and the next award is to Log Me In, or as the website is known, logmein.com. I'm going to start off. During colonial times, Boston's waterfront actually extended all the way up to the town dock at Quincy Market, just a stone's throw from where we're sitting. The harbor teemed with sailing vessels that fueled New England's vibrant economy. Within that bustling hub of commerce was the Fort Point Channel. What we know today as the Fort Point Channel neighborhood was built from the ground up, beginning in the 1830s. By the mid-19th century, the city had begun a full-scale redevelopment of Fort Point, which required the leveling of all of the high ground and then using the excess soil to fill in the coves on both sides of Fort Hill, thereby widening the streets in order to attract new businesses. The venerable Boston Wharf Company, whose sign still sits atop one of its former warehouses, was responsible for a majority of the subsequent development, actually laying out and constructing streets, parceling out lots, and erecting nearly all the sturdy, thoughtfully articulated manufacturing and warehouse buildings for the woolen trade. By the turn of the century, new bridges were built across Fort Point Channel at Northern Avenue, Congress Street, and Summer Street. All three spans originally opened to allow ships to pass through the channel, which was navigable as far up as Massachusetts Avenue, with schooners sailing all the way up to Albany Street in the South End. Having spent most of my professional life in the South End, it is hard to imagine a schooner on Albany Street. For a good part of the 20th century, Boston's Fort Point Channel was a forgettable part of the city. Those once grand commercial buildings had lost their manufacturing base and became economically unsustainable. For decades, the historic fabric of its core was characterized primarily by light manufacturing businesses, adventurous office users, including many architectural firms, and most especially the vibrant Fort Point Channel artists community, often using the formerly industrial spaces as live-work studios. Unfortunately, there was always a great deal of vacant space, and many completely boarded-up buildings, and the entire district was at risk. In an effort to secure the neighborhood's historic fabric through this transition, rediscovery, and redevelopment, in 2009, Fort Point Channel's 100 acres were designated a Boston landmark by the city's Landmark Commission. Within the Fort Point Channel neighborhood, 320 Summer Street was constructed in 1904 as a brick and beam, wool and dry goods warehouse. When Log Me In decided to make this building their new corporate headquarters, the property had been vacant for 5 years. Today, Log Me In is the largest software employer in what is now often referred to as Boston's Innovation District. They have nearly 300 employees at their new headquarters location, and they expect the company's local workforce will double within the next 3 to 5 years. As most of you know, Log Me In is a remote access product that allows secure encrypted communications between your desktop and another computer. Log Me In's design intent with their partner Lincoln Properties and Suffolk Construction in their new headquarters was to create a highly efficient, open, collaborative work environment that would encourage their pioneering technological initiatives. They began by doing a faithful restoration of the exterior of the building, including the masonry, the fenestration, the cornices, and even the recreation of the original cast bronze plaque. The interior workspace is defined by over 8 open and sunlit floor plates, where the timber framing has been completely exposed, and a 3-level open contemporary staircase connects the entryway to the floors above, redefining the traditional office environment. The core of each of these floors celebrates one of Log Me In's global offices, including Dublin, London, Sydney, and Budapest, with creative ambiance, artwork, and photography. Open floor plans, collaborative areas, movable petitions, espresso bars, a cafeteria, and even the obligatory pool and foosball tables redefine what it is today to work with your colleagues. Even their roof has over 3,000 square feet of collaborative workspace defined by decking, beautiful gardens, and an inspiring city skyline view. All of this restoration took place within the context of sustainable architecture. Their project achieved an 84% recycling rate and has received the LEED Silver certification. If I were a lot younger and could manage my own technology needs without calling my kids first, I would even apply for a job. Would John Miller and John Campbellano from Lincoln Properties please join us? It's good that those lights are hot, it really helps. Our next award is for something that many of you probably don't even realize is there. It's for a brand new townhouse on Commonwealth Avenue. In Boston's historic Back Bay, there are very few opportunities for new development because, as we can all appreciate, there's almost no open land. And along Commonwealth Avenue, there is none. Commonwealth Avenue is arguably the grandest and most elegant of Boston's streets, with its graceful central grass alley lined on both sides by well-tended, majestic trees. Bostonians can be assured that spring has finally arrived again when those beautiful old magnolia trees have begun their bloom up and down the avenue. The mall, as it has come to be known in the center of Commonwealth Avenue, is actually the narrowest part of Frederick Law Olmsted's spectacular emerald necklace and is surrounded on both sides by elegant mansions dating generally from the 1860s to the 1880s. Situated at the corner of Commonwealth Avenue and Dartmouth Street is one of Back Bay's most imposing manor houses, the Ames Webster Mansion. This grand mansion contains nearly 26,000 square feet of space, encompassing 50 rooms, 28 fireplaces, a music room complete with an orchestral balcony, incredible carved millwork, and even numerous hidden passageways concealed behind ornately shelved walls. This landmark is hopefully about to undergo a complete restoration. Along Commonwealth Avenue, adjacent to and formerly owned along with the Ames Webster Mansion, and just next to its elegant round glass conservatory, was an open, double townhouse lot where years earlier its building had been demolished. The opportunity to design and construct a new townhouse on the last open lot along Upper Commonwealth Avenue was a unique and enviable challenge. The design team was purposed to create appropriate and elegant architecture, which had to sensitively harmonize with the historic surroundings, and I might add, with the entire neighborhood watching, and I might guess offering their input as well. The architect's new design concept was never intended to copy or replicate precisely the historic architecture along Commonwealth Avenue, or pretend to be other than a new building. For materials, they chose quarried limestone, respecting the stone used in the imposing facade of the Vendome Hotel across the street. The building's four-story massing is characterized by a respect for the traditional street alignment, and the cornice line approximates that of its neighbors with a stepped-back mansard roof. The facade base is gently rusticated and is further defined by its elongated second-floor windows, balcony, and upper terrace details, which were all derived from the surrounding architectural context. The rear of the townhouse is in the more traditional red brick with a copper bay. Perhaps the most dramatic element is the elongated corbelled chimney on the side facade, which was designed to reflect the exposed chimney that had been the feature of the side wall when the site had been an open lot. More specifically, this project consists of two buildings, the new double-wide townhouse on Commonwealth Avenue, and additionally, the complete restoration of the adjacent brownstone dating from 1874. Perhaps the most fitting tribute to the remarkable success of this new townhouse is when you are next walking along Commonwealth Avenue from the public garden. On one of those beautiful fall afternoons, you will never know that this elegant building wasn't always a part of the original historic streetscape. Congratulations to the beautiful, beautiful new townhouse on Commonwealth Avenue, and will Jean Abu Hamid from Cedar Construction and a former board member, and Catherine Truman representing Ann Behar Associates, please join us. Congratulations to John and Catherine. And what number company? Great job. I want to say again that John was a long-standing board member, and he left the board. We could then give him an award. All right. Come back on, John. Our next award is to Liberty Mutual for their new headquarters building. As we reflect back on the Preservation Achievement Awards from prior years, some have been highly focused on downtown, simply because of the projects being nominated and developed. This year, we received an unprecedented number of high-quality submissions from within our neighborhoods. Downtown projects and larger-scaled commercial projects generally have a longer gestation period. Neighborhood projects can usually happen more quickly. This evening, we are recognizing only one large-scale downtown project because, quite courageously, it was conceived of, planned, and developed during the most difficult part of the recession. Liberty Mutual, one of our city's leading businesses, made a major commitment to the city of Boston to build at a time when almost every other large-scale project was put on hold. We're all familiar with Liberty Mutual's home along Clarendon and Stewart Street, incorporating their 1937 headquarters building and the 1917 Salata Tea building, where Grill 23 has been a fixture for decades. Liberty Mutual needed to expand their headquarters campus and workforce and decided to do so within our city by building a signature new 22-story tower at the corner of Columbus Avenue and Berkeley Street. They held a wide-ranging design competition and selected Boston's own CBT, who, by the way, was also, for decades, the lead tenant of the Ames-Webster Mansion. Their design challenge was to craft an important and elegant-looking building on a rather awkward site that resolves itself in a diagonal street grid. This site is also at the intersection of three important neighborhoods, the Back Bay, the South End, and Bay Village, all of which have very different characteristics and are from different time periods. Liberty Mutual's new building, in fact, takes advantage of that difficult colliding triangle street grid in a creative and dramatic curved facade reminiscent of New York's Flatiron Building. The new structure is clad completely in quarried Indiana limestone with punched windows and a facade articulated in a distinctive tripartite massing. The building reflects a pared-down, neoclassical aesthetic, which achieves the quiet elegance and strength that the insurance company sought. Additionally, as a part of this development, Liberty Mutual undertook the restoration of the 105,000 square foot Salata Tea building. Its enormous and ornate bronze doors, 12 feet tall, weighing over 2 tons, are among the finest architectural treasures in our city. One of the most challenging parts of the greater project was the need to integrate their original building, the Salata Tea building, and their new tower into one efficient and accessible urban campus. The solution, so gracefully imagined by CBT, was a delicate, transparent, all-glass, luminescent pedestrian bridge. Not a barrier, as many feared, but a delicate structural glass and thin steel suspension bridge, which is certain to be noted as one of the finest architectural features of the project. Liberty Mutual and their team created a new home for 600 employees, bringing their workforce in Boston to nearly 3,000, while architecturally contributing greatly to Boston's built environment. Congratulations to Liberty Mutual, and will Karen Whitenack and Sean Murphy please join us from Liberty Mutual. Our next project is the Maverick Marketplace. The Maverick Marketplace at 154 Maverick Street in East Boston is truly a grassroots, locally based redevelopment. The building was originally constructed in 1936 during the Great Depression. It was built as the welfare building to assist East Boston families in financial jeopardy. John and Melissa Tyler undertook this project after the building had been vacant and an eyesore for more than 17 years within this closely knit urban neighborhood. Their project was conceived of as a small business incubator to allow owner-operated businesses the opportunity for affordable rents in a collaborative atmosphere. The building's first floor is characterized by an open-air market, several boutique-style shops, a small, locally owned cafe, and East Boston's last remaining cobbler. The second floor of the building offers up to 8 offices, and the third floor of the building has 2 residential apartments, one of which is the home of the developers. The Tylers accomplished the vast majority of this restoration of the Maverick Marketplace on their own, including saving and repurposing and restoring much of the original historic architecture of the building. We applaud their passion for this project and their success. For its size and scale, this project received an enormous amount of community support. We hope this will be just the beginning of many restoration projects to come for the Tylers. Congratulations to the Tylers of Maverick Marketplace. Please join us. John and Mary. He married well. Actually, I did too, as I have been reminded. The next award, backbayhouses.org. Our next award recipient is certainly unique within the context of the varied awards that the Alliance has given out over the years, but no less significant. Backbayhouses.org is a website that provides the genealogy of nearly every building in Boston's historic Back Bay. The site is not intended to be exclusively an architectural history, but rather a summary of who lived in every building and how they have been used over the last century and a half. The site is intended to be of interest and used by residents, historians, preservationists, and genealogists regarding the rich history of the Back Bay. To date, after more than a decade, the website includes 1,000 pages of information, accounting not only for each existing building, but buildings that have been demolished as well. The buildings are listed and hyperlinked by street names and addresses. The site traces who owned and lived in each building, plus its architect and/or its builder. Each page includes a current picture and a small map, including abutters and historic photographs. This site is, by its own admission, still a work in progress and invites additional information and updating. Historic photographs are being added continually through the contributions of many resources, including the Boston Public Library, the Bostonian Society, Historic New England, and the Ryerson and Burnham Archives of Chicago. Just as the Maverick Marketplace in East Boston and the Clapp Historical Homestead in Dorchester served as a catalyst for pride of place, it is our hope that the good work and incredibly interesting rich history offered in backbayhouses.org will serve as a catalyst for other neighborhoods to embark on the same journey and make available to future generations the rich history of their home and their neighborhood in an easily accessible, online, permanent digital format. Congratulations to backbayhouses.org, and will Tom and Nancy High from Back Bay Houses please join us? Talk about a labor of love. Okay, you were nice to put up with me. This is the last award, number 10. And this is a special award that goes to the North Bennett Street School. Our final Preservation Achievement Award is given to the North Bennett Street School, which has been an important and well-respected Boston institution since its incorporation in 1885. The North Bennett Street School is a unique educational environment where the learning comes from the doing and the hands engage the mind. Their acclaimed programs teach and uphold the principles and practices of the craftsmanship tradition. In fact, the school is the only institution in the country with 8 full-time professional craft training programs in the trades of cabinet and furniture making, jewelry making and repair, violin making and repair, preservation carpentry, locksmithing, piano tuning and rebuilding, and bookbinding. From their bookbinding graduates, who quite literally are restoring our nation's historic archives, to their preservation carpenters, who have restored some of our nation's most precious historic landmarks, including the monumental First Parish Church steeple, North Bennett Street graduates support our country's heritage. Their contribution to our city is varied and important, and as a part of this commitment to lifelong learning and advocating the value of hand skills training, they have established a partnership with the Boston Public Schools to reintroduce woodworking to school children in grades K through 8, beginning at the John Elliott School. For generations, the North Bennett Street School trained their craftsmen and women in their small, cramped North End townhouses. Each time I went there, I could never quite understand the logistics of how they moved their pianos in and out and up flights of stairs in those tiny buildings. When the opportunity presented itself for North Bennett Street to purchase two nearby and adjacent buildings from the City of Boston, the North End Police Station No. 1 and the City of Boston Print Shop, it seemed like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring all of these programs together under one roof in an appropriate facility. The school purchased the two buildings, totaling 65,000 square feet from the City of Boston in 2012. Built in the Georgian Revival style, these two distinctive buildings are fine examples of early 20th century civic architecture. The neighborhood surrounding these buildings is considered to be the city's oldest residential community, and 9 residential, religious, and municipal buildings within the North End are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Both of these buildings were introduced into the National Register based on the history of events that occurred within, as well as their significant contribution to the history of the North End. The repurposing and interconnecting of what were two separate structures was not without its challenges. Aside from the more typical restoration challenges and financial hurdles, they are always more complicated for a nonprofit. These two buildings had two other difficult obstacles to overcome. The National Park Service had jurisdiction, as did the BRA, since they were previously city-owned buildings. Additionally, they sit on top of the Sumner Tunnel, requiring the Department of Transportation's oversight and approval. And they contain important Verizon switching gear in the interior, which had to continue functioning through the entire construction process. The results were clearly worth the efforts. For the first time in decades, the school is able to have its entire student body gather together, enhancing the educational experience for students and strengthening their sense of community. The new school is both functional and architecturally stunning. We congratulate our good friends at North Bennett Street on their wonderful accomplishment and their bright future, teaching the next generation the skills and rewards of fine craftsmanship. Congratulations to the North Bennett Street School, and will Miguel Gomez-Ibanez from the North Bennett Street School and Kevin Alwyn from Bond Construction please join us. Thank you, everybody, and it is my good fortune to turn the program over now to Greg.
Great job, Roger. Thank you very much. With a very large number of quality nominations this year, selection of the winners was particularly challenging. So many great projects from which to choose. And this year, we tried something new. Preservation of the city's character benefits the city and all its residents. So, we wanted to know, of the 10 projects we selected as award winners, which was your favorite? Which is the fan favorite? It's hard to believe, really incredible, how much online public voting caught on. There were people regularly tweeting, sending group emails with crazy lines like, "Holy viral voting, Batman," and "What we need is more geometric growth in votes per day." "We got spanked yesterday. They turned in 279 votes to our 103. Even analyzing and posting graphs and charts of voting trends. I guess people were just warming up for November. Believe it or not, and I can't believe it, Allison, is this right? We got 9,955 votes. People engaging with the Alliance in voting. A huge success. Now for the announcement. Voting has been fierce, it's been competitive. We closed voting at noon today. And before announcing the winner, I'd like to recognize the second and third place finishers, Fort Hill Tower and Maverick Marketplace. And the 2014 Preservation Achievement Award fan favorite is the Log Me In corporate headquarters. Can John Miller and John Compilano, owner and developer of Log Me In, come back to the stage, or did they take off? You need to come back to accept your fan favorite award. Well, of course, there's only one logical award for a fan favorite, and that's a fan. And I need to make sure I recognize Jim Kelleher. He and I, the two of us, were on WGBH together. On GBH Greater Boston. So thank you, Log Me In, a huge success. Now, on to the President's Award. The President's Award is a new award by the Alliance this year. It's part and parcel of our recognition that success in preserving the character of the city isn't just about restoring iconic buildings or creative adaptive use for historic structures or protecting heritage landscapes. It's about protecting places, preserving character, and promoting vibrancy. And while our Codman Award is given to Tony Pollock earlier tonight is our highest award for lifetime achievement in preservation, we also recognize that preservation can't make it alone. The preservation of Boston's character depends on the overall success and vibrancy of the city. The President's Award is to recognize individuals, corporations, or projects that have made remarkable contributions, not just as preservationists, but for enhancing the success and vibrancy of the city in a way which aligns with the mission of the Alliance. On behalf of our chairman, Lee Freudenheim, and our entire board, I'm so pleased tonight to present our inaugural President's Award to Howard Elkus and David Manfredi. Hold on. The list of their projects and achievements is long and diverse, and I encourage each of you to read their contributions in the Alliance Annual you received tonight as your program. When we asked Howard and David if they would accept this honor, they both pointed to their work focused on placemaking, not design of specific buildings per se, but their desire to look holistically at places, neighborhoods, shopping areas, places to live, work, and play. Places that integrate new and old, that energize pedestrian life and interactions with the streetscape and the city itself. In other words, projects that focus on bringing life, vibrancy, and energy to the city, and support historic buildings as fundamental parts of the realization of these emotional and economic goals. First, David Manfredi. David's hand is visible throughout Boston, and he remains active in our city and beyond. Both he and Howard have an immense body of work across the globe. David is a member of the Boston Civic Design Commission and Northeastern University School of Architecture Advisory Council, and he plays active leadership roles with A Better City, NAOP, and the Urban Land Institute. His project list is large, but just to mention a few. Liberty Wharf, which was the 2012 Preservation Achievement Award winner. The new Avalon at Exeter. His work includes important homes of research, including Vertex Pharmaceuticals in the Innovation District, and work that's, well, just across the river in that other city, the Eli and Edith Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard and Pfizer. He's transformed industrial buildings, such as the former Haviland Candy Factory in Cambridge, into 1 4th Street, which I hear is really a sweet place to live. and he led, I know, grown. And he led the development of the Grove at Farmers Market in Los Angeles, as well as the Honors College at Rutgers University. David is particularly interested in the challenges of rehabilitating large, older mercantile buildings, whose very size and metrics defy contemporary business models. Great examples include the Lazarus Department Store in Columbus, Ohio, and our very own Landmark Center, which many of you, as well as I remember, as Sears in the Fenway, itself a former Alliance Award winner and currently being planned for another round of rejuvenation. Howard Elkus has and continues to make remarkable contributions to the built environment, not just of Boston, but across the nation and beyond. A fellow of the American Institute of Architects, Howard plays an active role with the Old North Church National Advisory Committee, the Board of Overseers of the Boston Architectural College, the International Council of Shopping Centers, and the Urban Land Institute. Some of his most remarkable projects include the headquarters of the American Institute of Architects in Washington, the Heritage on the Garden on Boylston Street, the challenging rehabilitation of the Charles MGH T Station, a remarkable over 2 decades of work with Emerson College, including bringing back to the city the Paramount and Cutler Majestic theaters. He's currently working to re-energize and enhance the historic icons of both where we are tonight, Faneuil Hall Marketplace, just outside the door, and the Old North Church. We are lucky, oh so lucky, that Howard calls Boston home, but his work spans well beyond. He's currently engaged with a transformative 1 million square foot project at the Hudson Yards in New York City. From being the youngest fellow of the AIA to his remarkable work today, Howard Elkus has certainly left his mark on Boston over many successful decades. Howard and David's work leaves a lasting impression on any city they touch. They recognize that design and planning is about buildings and spaces, but it's really about people, how people interact with buildings and spaces, and how people interact with each other within these places. They understand that the uniqueness of character, which derives from our historic sites, and the interplay of old and new is energizing, inspirational, and catalytic. Thoughtful design which considers people, which considers us as inhabitants of these places, can be positively transformative and elevate our historic city to even greater success. I'm pleased to present Howard Elkus and David Manfredi with the inaugural Boston Preservation Alliance President's Award.
Thank you, Boston Preservation Alliance, for this exceptionally generous recognition of the first President's Award, which is an honor for us as well as for the many gifted colleagues with whom we have collaborated. We are extremely fortunate to be able to contribute to the architectural heritage and landscape of this remarkable city in one of its most exciting eras of expansion, renewal, and preservation. To be here this evening in Faneuil Hall, which has played such an important part in Boston and the nation's history, underscores the significance of the Preservation Alliance's mission in safeguarding the character and integrity of this city. To be recognized by an organization which has been a major advocate in the preservation of Boston's rich heritage is a very profound honor. We are all here this evening because we care deeply about this great city we live in. We recognize the wealth of treasures that we have inherited from those generations who have looked after the city before us, just as we are the temporary caretakers who will hand them over to the generations that come by weaving them into the fabric of the new city. We are fortunate to be partners with many of today's visionaries who are creating the Boston of the future. Without time to recognize everyone here, I would like to mention the special relationship we have had with Emerson College under the leadership of Jacqueline Liebergott, Ted Cutler, and Rob Silverman over the past 20 years in creating its campus on the Common. Emerson was primarily responsible for turning around the theater district by restoring some of the city's legendary theaters, repurposing much of the area's building stock, infilling with new structures, meanwhile building its international stature and garnering virtually every regional and national award for historic preservation. We are also honored to be working with the Foundation Board of the Old North Church and Vicars Stephen Ayres in preserving the Old North Church, birthplace of the American Revolution. And finally, we should thank the Ashkenazi organization's Barry Lustig for their part in hosting tonight's reception at Faneuil Hall Marketplace. We are privileged to be their partners in repositioning this remarkable Boston landmark to ensure that Bostonians are counted in the 20 million visitors it attracts each year. David and I have chosen to build our careers and our architectural practice here in Boston. Though our work today extends across the country and beyond its shores, we share with everyone here a common passion and dedication to this great city. We thank you for recognizing us for our commitments as your partners in preserving this wonderful place.
Good evening. Thank you all very much for coming this evening, and I want to especially thank all of the folks who were so generous, our partners in all of our projects around the city, our clients. It is really rewarding to see how you've supported the Boston Preservation Alliance. We live in a city that has a lot of crooked streets made by cow paths and horse paths over many years, but also a city that has a beautiful grid of streets, a precise grid of streets, designed and planned by brilliant architects and planners. We live in a city, as was mentioned by Roger tonight, of some of the most celebrated green open space anywhere in the world, and of great architectural treasures. But it's also a city with historic buildings of everyday life, and we saw some brilliant examples tonight. Buildings, department stores, warehouses, storage buildings, row houses, churches, empty churches. Buildings that have lost their meaning and their place. Their businesses have failed. And yet, what we have learned, and we learn it again tonight, that there are many lessons, that these are the buildings of another generation of use, of innovative workplaces, of innovative housing, of even our new generation of cultural places. The lessons from these buildings are about quality and durability. They're about a generosity of spirit and space and light. And we learn from them, and that's what we see all around us on these beautiful boards and photographs. I want to thank the Boston Preservation Alliance, and especially the board, who puts in so much time. These are accomplished folks with lots to do, and they put in their time, their energy, their expertise. They are the stewards of our historical heritage. And all of those people who sit on boards in historic commissions all over the neighborhoods of the city, all in the cities and towns that surround us, they do it because they love the place, because they're committed to this important historic heritage. We love Boston. We love Boston in a very personal kind of way. You all are the faithful stewards of this place. I want to thank the Boston Preservation Alliance for a really remarkable honor. We really do treasure this. It is an incredibly meaningful thing to both Howard and I. And the Boston Preservation Alliance is important for its historic perspective, but also its recognition of new architecture in the context of that historic place. It is especially important to share this award with my partner of 26 years. We've had an awful lot of fun. Thank you very much, and we really do treasure the recognition.
Thank you, Howard and David. Okay, we're in the home stretch, I promise. Before the conclusion of the program, I do want to mention a few logistics. The reception tonight is at the adjacent greenhouse, which we've transformed into a pop-up party. Go downstairs, follow the red carpet immediately to your left, and hopefully we'll all be surprised by what we see. Be sure to have your photo taken with the award-winning projects, which we've magically transported from their neighborhoods to be with us tonight. But speaking of photos and award winners, I've mentioned it to everyone on stage, but somehow the cats always get out of the barn. All award winners, please stay back so we can take some formal photographs so you can have them with you before heading off to the reception. If everyone cooperates, we can make it quick. Before the final piece tonight, I have to make a personal thank you to my dedicated staff. In particular, Allison Frazee, who's hiding in the corner running the PowerPoint. This truly has been our largest event ever, I believe, and Allison has magically kept all the details together and kept me from pulling all my hair out. So thank you, Allison. And now a parting thought. Our days are often so focused on details, regulations, process, what meeting we need to get to next, what letter we need to write tomorrow. Sometimes it's easy to forget the intangibles of why we love Boston, why we do the work we do. We're therefore happy to premiere tonight something we think gets to the heart of the matter. So please direct your attention to the screens on either side of the stage.
This is not just a cornerstone. This is more than a building. And this, more than a woman of glass. These are not just a way up. Nor is this just a way in. Not just a street, not just a city. All of this is character. And character is the business we're in. The preservation of character, the evolution of character. Because character is what separates Boston from being just like everywhere else. At the Boston Preservation Alliance, we have helped preserve hundreds of Boston area buildings, landmarks, and landscapes through advocacy and education. Be a part of the city. Be a part of its character. Be a part of the Alliance. Help us preserve what makes Boston, Boston.
Thank you immensely to creative director and copywriter Doug Gould and editor Dave Maloney for this amazing video. Before heading to the reception, and remember, award winners staying here, don't forget, please join me in one final round of applause to all the award winners tonight. Thank you all for coming, and I look forward to seeing you at the reception and at future Alliance events. Thank you.